Once I reach 1,000 subscribers, I will always have a live chat on the first Friday of the month at 8 p.m. So please subscribe, click on the bell, and let's get 1,000 subscribers very soon. Gudde Moien and welcome back to Planet Althistory. Today we are going to discuss what if the Arabs successfully conquered Constantinople. I like Byzantium, so this scenario really hurts me. No, just kidding. But yes, I like Byzantium. I love it, in fact. You may know that the early Muslim conquests happened from 620 until 750, and I guess you are starting to see a picture now, especially around my latest alternate history video where I'm talking a lot about this time. Anyways, the Muslims conquered a lot, from Pakistan to Spain, and then from the Caucasus to Yemen. They were very efficient and they were an unstoppable force. The Sassanid Empire was very tired, overstretched, and they had many wars with Byzantium, and they were easily conquered by the Arab forces. Byzantium was more lucky for many reasons. They had some advantages unlike the Sassanid Empire. Anatolia proved to be a very good defensive spot. They had a lot of mountainous terrain, and in a naval combat Byzantium always destroyed the Arabs, especially with the help of the Greek fire. And Byzantium had also many territories that were still very much loyal to them, and Greek, for instance, was very much spoken, and it was a truly Hellenized or Romanized, whatever way you want to use, word. Constantinople became one of the best defended cities around the world, and Byzantium had many competent rulers and leaders, but at different times, and not one after one. But let's say the Arabs managed to conquer Constantinople. So what if the Arabs successfully conquered Constantinople? The first siege would be difficult to change, but let's say the Arabs would know about the Greek fire and were somehow prepared for it, and then during the second siege in 717 and 718, the Arab forces had very tough climatic conditions to fight against, and I would say that without the hard winter, the siege might have been more successful, and if the Bulgar Khanate, for whatever reason, would temporarily become an ally of the Arabs, Byzantium might be doomed and Constantinople could be taken by the Arabs. Of course, Byzantium will not just stop existing, but we can assume that the central authority will be abolished. Byzantium will cease to exist as a central empire, but not in its name. So many tiny duchies and smaller principalities, kingdoms, they will suddenly be created. Just look at the crusade that was directed against Constantinople. In there we had a similar situation. Suddenly you had Trebizond, you had the Latin Empire, you had Athens, you had many tiny principalities and kingdoms and whatever, and they claimed to be the true successor of Byzantium. Anyways, many of these places, they will claim to be the true Rome or Roman Empire, but we will not have a second Holy Roman Empire, because this is something way different. Perhaps the official emperor for that time could establish himself in modern-day Greece, or he will be taken hostage after Constantinople would be taken. It doesn't matter anyway for this scenario. There will be a sort of split where the Greeks or the remnants in Crimea will continue for at least 300 years. The area around Trebizond will flourish for some centuries, as well as southern Anatolian areas, and then finally we have the Greek core land, of course, in Greece. I am not saying that these areas will be united, but there is a chance that this might happen in a similar way like Iberia. I mean, look, the geography in Iberia is mountainous, the climate is somewhat similar. The only difference is that the Muslim colons, they are much closer to modern day Greece, Anatolia, than to modern day Iberia. However, if you take the central authority away, it is difficult to just sweep in and take every area. There is a reason why the Basque, for instance, still exist until today. Thus, many pockets of Christians and Greeks would survive and form their own kingdoms. The Umayyad Caliphate would anyway suffer from a civil war, and that's where the Greeks could step in and take back some of their lands. Once the Abbasids would take power from the Umayyads, they will probably establish a base in Europe too, but the Bulgars will beat them, and their leader would be a Charles Martel of the East in a way, let's say. It is also possible that the invention of Greek fire might spread or might even become much more improved because competition stimulates innovation. Plus, some smaller Greek kingdoms will probably allow the Bulgars to use the Greek fire in order to prevent the Abbasid from taking over, because I guess after some more years the Bulgars, they will convert, and thus the Greeks, they will probably prefer Christian barbarians than Muslim barbarians, according to them. At first, Bulgaria will be probably the most dominant power in the Balkans. They will even have influence over Anatolia, but after the Hungarian invasion, things would change very fast, and the Bulgarians would lose vast amount of territories, and a more united Greek Christian kingdom could start to take territories back. The policies of the tiny Greek kingdoms would all be so different from each other that the Abbasids would not just be able to conquer them all. Some kingdoms, they would probably lose lands, some principalities would totally fall and be annexed, while others could be ruled in a very efficient and competent way and manage to beat the Abbasid and take even more lands back. The Crusades, they would happen in a different way, but ultimately there wouldn't be this excuse from the Pope to help the Byzantines, as the area would already be fairly divided and almost totally conquered by the Muslims. Constantinople would be a place of more fights than in OTL, fights between Bulgarians, Greeks, Arabs, etc. So it would not have the same wealth and reputation as in OTL. It is safe to assume that the Crusaders would head for Constantinople. Wouldn't head for Constantinople. Later on, when the Turks would try to come and settle in Anatolia, the Greek kingdoms could take advantage and once more expand to the east and southwards, while the Turks could try to head for Mesopotamia or Syria, but also for the Greek kingdoms, where I think they will have actually less of a chance, because there is a disunity, yes, but the authority in each and every kingdom is probably more strong and more united than it was with a bigger Byzantium. Think of it for a moment. While Byzantium was always on the defensive from all the sides, no matter where, the tiny kingdoms were not, and they were used to fight against each other, their neighbors and whatnot. Their military strategy would be more efficient, as they would need to save resources, for instance. They need to be more efficient, and they would certainly try to have more offensive military tactics, because you cannot always be on the defensive. Once you really have to strike and take advantage when your enemy is weak. The Byzantine remnants in Crimea will be gobbled up by the Kievan Rus until the Mongols would come, where they would be shortly dominated by the Mongols. The Greek kingdoms of Anatolia can have an easier time and even take advantage in taking yet more territories which were formerly controlled by Byzantium. I think once the decline of the Muslim world would continue, the Greek kingdoms in Anatolia will be the ones who mix Christianity with militarism, some Roman, Byzantine shared memory, and get a Greek version of the Reconquista, the anaktisi or something similar. Anaktisi in Greek means the reconquest or the conquest. At first, the anaktisi would affect the Anatolian Greeks, while the Greeks in Greece would probably try to use the sea to their advantage and build a trade empire, as Venice did in OTL. They might become the Venice in this alternative timeline and sail across all the Mediterranean and taking Crete, Cyprus, Malta, and even establish ports in Crimea, as they already have good connections with the local population in there. What happens to Italy? Italy would be split in many different city-states, but they would not be able to project a lot of power. They would be overshadowed by their neighbors and never be able to regain the spotlight until they would reunite at some time. The rest of Europe would probably have a different culture and different ideas of arts and a different intelligentsia. Many ideas from Byzantium would already spread way before, or just stay at their place or be lost permanently during the fall of Constantinople. The discovery of the Americas would not happen until perhaps some Nordic country would reanalyze old texts from the year 1000. Trade between India and Europe would not really be interrupted. However, if the maritime Greek states they decide to raise taxes or change their policies in one way or another, it would give initiative to Portugal and Spain to at least sail across Africa or actually discover the Americas. But this would probably happen at a later date. Without the Ottomans in the picture, artillery warfare will change or not be present, but due to the fact that the Greek fire still exists and that the military inventions would still mostly come from post-Byzantium, it is very difficult to determine how much the military would change. At the end, I think that Byzantium will not re-exist anymore, and a powerful Greek Anatolian empire would stretch from Constantinople, bordering Armenia, having it as a client state, bordering Persia, Mesopotamia, and even including Latakia, today's Lebanon, and if possible, the areas controlled by today's Israel. The Greeks in Greece will still be the maritime power, just as Venice, and even be more powerful than Venice, while smaller Greek states similar to San Marino or Andorra could exist in, let's say, Crimea, like Theodora for instance, or in some places in Anatolia, or maybe on islands like Naxos or Rhodos. I think you get the picture. Orthodoxy will change the most. Usually when we compare Orthodoxy with Catholicism, we always think and have this bias that Orthodox people, Orthodox countries were more peaceful. And yes, honestly, if we check the statistics and all, they actually were compared to the Catholics. This time, Orthodoxy will become even more important for the Greeks and even give the same motivation as Catholicism did to the Spanish and the Portuguese. The anaktisi idea would also match with the Greek identity and Orthodoxy, as well as a new megali idea which would propagate the union of all Greek states. This is now a good point where I will have to stop the video, as it would become impossible to predict what else could happen. Sure, the Greeks could perhaps get colonies or not, or another Muslim power could yet again take out everyone due to all the butterflies. It is just impossible to predict. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, support me also on Patreon, and join my forum, forum.planetalthistory.ga. Until next time on Planet Althistory.